learn to speak.
It doesn't seem to matter how many times I correct him. He still says jamamas. He likes that word.
Mothers are important because they provide a lot of the data. Kid makes a noise and the mother expands on it and that sort of thing. But children don't copy what's done around them. They acquire language by being surrounded by it, immersed in it all the time.
The philosopher Wittgenstein said that children acquire speech by playing the language game, a game in which mothers often seem to imitate their children.
Ready? Okay.
Sammy is 3.5 years old. How much grammar does he know?
We know that Cookie Monster eats cookies and cakes, right? Ask the rat what he thinks.
What do you think Cookie Monster eats?
What?
What do you think Cookie Monster eats?
Oh, I think Cookie Monster eats maybe pizza? Goodness. Try again. Then maybe he likes to eat cookies.
Cookies and what else?
Ice cream? Well, that's a tough one, Sammy.
I'll give you a guess, or I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
It starts with a K.
Oh, it starts with a K.
What do you think Cookie Monster eats?
With a K? Maybe cake.
Right.
Okay. Great.
Cookie. What do you think Cookie Monster eats? It's really rather remarkable that such a young child can produce such a complicated sentence. This is a complex sentence that has one sentence inside another. Cookie Monster eats something inside the larger sentence. You think Cookie Monster eats something. Then it's been changed into a question. And the way it's changed into a question is something is changed into what. And then what is displaced from the very end of this long sentence to the very beginning. But the child was able to do it unerringly. Now, it has been thought for a while that children take 5, 8, 10, 12 years to learn their syntax, to learn how to produce such complicated sentences. But experiments like these seem to indicate that the child was able to produce this very complicated sentence at an age when he has difficulty tying his shoes.
Just do the bow part for me, would you, Sammy?
One more?
Yeah, one more bow.
Any 4-year-old can pull it off with almost the facility that any 34-year-old can. It's quite a remarkable achievement, and one which comes intuitively, naturally, unconsciously. Nothing troubles us about it.
No matter how young you investigate them, they seem to get all of these fundamental syntactic things right.
And nobody can teach that to the child. I think that's one of Chomsky's most powerful arguments. This is something the child has to figure out on his own or on her own.
Chomsky is often misunderstood as claiming that all of language is innate. Now, I would go so far as to say that most of language is innate. That is, much of what you know when you know a language, you couldn't possibly have learned because you never had evidence for it. You never had training in it, but surely you don't inherit all of it.
Certainly nobody is saying that French is innate or Spanish is innate. I mean, there is no argument of this sort. There's a sense in which language is obviously learned from specific facts in the surrounding environment.
The environment certainly has an effect. So, for example, I'm talking English, I'm not talking Japanese, and that's because I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, not in northeastern Tokyo.
So experience is certainly relevant. What Chomsky has shown is that there's much beyond experience that's relevant. That is, much of what you know when you know a language you had no experience for, couldn't possibly have learned.
A handsome prince came, and a little girl came out and laid on a couch, and a big girl came out, and she had a thing around here, and she took it off and put it on laid it on a girl.
The child is able to say sentences that he or she has never heard before.
And then she...
Well, how could this be done?
And then she walked around and she saw a handsome prince, and then snow came down.
It could not be, there being so many sentences, that the child has just heard all of these sentences and memorized them all.
And then we went in and watched the movie,
There is a traditional semi-answer to this, and that is we do it by analogy. New sentences are like the ones we've heard before, and that's how we understand them. Well, let's have a look at that.
So suppose we assume the child has heard the sentence, I painted the red barn. So now by analogy, the child can say, I painted a blue barn. That's exactly the kind of theory that we want. You hear a sample and you extend it to all of the new cases by similarity. That's the right theory. In addition to, I painted a red barn, you may also hear the sentence, I painted a barn red. So it looks as if you can take those last two words and switch them around in their order. That sounds good. So now you want to extend this to the case of seeing, because now you want to look at barns instead of painting them. So you have heard, I saw a red barn. So now you try, new sentence, I saw a barn red. I saw a red barn. I saw a barn red. Alarm, something's gone wrong. This is an analogy, but the analogy didn't work. It's not a sentence of English.
Even from these simple examples, we can see at once that concepts like analogy are not going to do very much work. In fact, there is no one has ever proposed a concept of analogy that it doesn't break down at once under investigation. In fact, these examples show us that some kind of mental computation is going on that is providing rather surprising results. Suppose that a child has learned to understand the word eat. He knows that somebody does the eating, something gets eaten. He understands John ate an apple. He's now faced with John ate. Well, the child understands that. He or she knows that John ate means John ate something or other.
Taro ate his sandwich. But suppose that he hadn't eaten his sandwich. Suppose that he ate his shoe. Taro ate his shoe. Or Taro ate his hat. It's a funny thing to do, but a perfectly normal thing to say, if that's what Taro did. But now, you can't say Taro ate. Taro ate means he ate his sandwich, or he ate breakfast, or lunch, or something normal, not his shoe, or his hat, or his words. Taro ate. But he didn't eat his shoe. How do I know that? How does any speaker of English know that? That Taro ate doesn't mean that he ate his shoe.
Now let's extend that by analogy to new utterances.
Now suppose Taro's a farmer.
Suppose the same child hears the sentence, John grows tomatoes, and knows that growing is something that a person can do when something gets grown, so that's just like John eats an apple. And now suppose tomatoes is dropped. So we have John grows. Well, now the sentence does not mean John grows something or other, but I don't know what. In fact, John grows means something totally different.
Doesn't mean the same thing at all.
John is undergoing some sort of a development. Now here the analogy is wildly broken, yet we all do this instantaneously, without training, without experience, and in a way which is based on principles that are quite common to the human species and underlie our very understanding of language.
Pretend you're sick, okay? I got a problem with that. I'll come with that.
We might ask how old a child has to be before he begins to appreciate something of the grammar of his native tongue.
Okay. Told you, give him some medicine. Come on.
When does he know about ideas like subjects of the sentence and objects of the sentence? When does he know the difference between the horse kicked the cow and the cow kicked the horse? That the subject is the one who did the kicking and the object is the one that got kicked.
Experiments at Temple University try to learn how early the child knows.
Where's Big Bird? Find Big Bird.
Huh?
Where's We present two films, one on the left screen and one on the right screen.
Mama.
Then we simply ask the child through a centralized speaker,
Where's Cookie Monster washing Big Bird? Find Cookie Monster washing Big Bird.
So the question behind all our studies is, will the child look more at the screen that matches the language that they're hearing?
Look, Big Bird's feeding Cookie Monster. Find Big Bird feeding Cookie Monster.
Ma. 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 Ma.
Where's Cookie Monster?
The remarkable thing is that some of these children who are only 16 months old and who have only 2 words in their productive vocabularies, nonetheless are understanding the order of the information as it comes in our sentences.
That is, that Cookie Monster is doing the action and he's in the first position in the sentence, and Big Bird is receiving the action and he's in the second position in the sentence.
See, Big Bird tickling Cookie Monster.
Word order is one of the 2 devices that languages all over the world seem to use to map the objects and events that are going on in the world, which is a very important part of grammar and may in fact be telling us that these young children have syntax.
I think it makes very good sense to think of language as essentially an organ of the mind. And bear in mind that when we use the word mind, we're simply talking about the brain at some abstract level. Now, remember, when a child learns a language, the child is basically creating the language. The language is growing in the child's mind.
Does this apply to words? Surely words don't exist in the child's mind.
Sour.
Yet we learn words so easily,
Raspberry.
you might wonder if our brains give us some